for first whether or not you value that class. So how much value do you put into that class? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you value that particular class? And then you're going to multiply that by the next value is what is your expectation for that class of being successful? What's your expectation that you're going to ace this class and get an A? And give that on a scale of 1 to 10. And then I want you to multiply the two of them together. So value times expectation equals motivation. That's how motivated you're going to be for that particular class. So how many of you got less than a 60 when you added those up? Yeah, so that's not going to be too good for you, is it? So what you need to do is refer back to this metacognition. You know, think of ways that you can put more value into this class. And you all know it's one of the main values, of course, is your GPA at the end, right? So, but sometimes you just can't, you know, put all of your emphasis on your GPA, but that is fairly high value. But let's say this course has nothing to do with your major at all, so that usually is what decreasing your value. But find some way to give yourself that pep talk to bring that value up. And then the other thing is your expectation. We'll talk more about that on the handout sheet that I have. And it's very, very important for you to have confidence, to have that expectation. So if it's not possible for you to increase your value up to a 10 for this class, you know, if you still think it's a crazy class and you shouldn't be taking it, at least try and increase that expectation. Have the confidence that you're going to do well in that class, and that in itself will boost it up. So the 6 times the 9 is better than the 6 times the 7. As you go down the grade. So ask yourself those metacognitive questions as far as how motivated am I for this class and how can I change that? Okay, and then reconsolidation is the last step, and it's pretty much just doing it all over again. Just do it and do it and do it. So practice, practice, repetition, repetition, repetition. So memory is strengthened by insight. So you must understand something. So you can study and study and study, memorize, 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 but actually not really understand it. Not really understand what's going on. And that's what the reconsolidation does. Allows you to elaborate on it more. Go to your professors so you can actually gain a deep understanding of this and not just practice something for rote. So it's deliberate practice, identifying the gaps and directing your focus. As you're studying, don't study something that you already know and understand, because you're really just wasting your time, because you already know that. So focus on the things that you don't know. Elaborate upon them. Trust your brain. If you got that good night's sleep, if you're remembering it now, you're going to remember it when it comes time for the exam. So if you know those flashcards, right, don't bother going through them again. Connections to more recent learning. Again, it's constantly making those connections all the time. Learning is continuous. You'll continue to add more connections. Even when you've done one chapter in your biology textbook and already got that quiz done and over with, but when you go on to the next chapter, you'll be making those connections between the previous chapter. You'll continue making those connections. Ongoing as you continue to review. And again, what does that look like? It might look like going to talk to the tutor at SESI. How many of you have already been to SESI? Oh, goody, great. continuing on with those elaborations, those visual condensed notes, this is kind of the stage of creating a study guide, right at the very, very end, when you're preparing for, you're finalizing this study guide for your exam, an exam study guide. Okay, so just some last little bits of information. Again, it's knowledge versus know-how, knowing all the landmarks in town versus being able to give someone direction. It's a big difference of you being able to apply the information that you actually got, rather than just making sure that it's in your brain and you can retrieve it. And then mastery again. It's a totally different concept. It's knowing that you have a true conceptual understanding of this concept and you know how to apply the knowledge. Okay, so next we're going to look at the handout I gave you. And the purpose of it is to go ahead and do what I just went through this whole PowerPoint slide and gave you this information, that in order to remember something and take it in, you're taking it in a different venues, many different venues. So you see it, so you saw it, you've heard me babbling on up here, right? And now we're going to read it, but we're going to read it in a different way. So this particular handout has a lot of the information that's within my slide, but yet it's different. And that's what you want. You want the information that you take in to be different. You just don't want to read the same thing over and over again and expect to learn it in that particular fashion. And then it's a matter of putting it in your own words and applying it. So let's look at that handout. And I'm just going to, I want you to take the handout with you and look at it in your spare time. I'm not going to read through it. I'm just going to touch, highlight it. But I do want you to go ahead and read it one more time. To give you some more strategies that we've been talking about. Your professors wouldn't have asked you to attend these presentations if they felt it wasn't important for you. Important for your success here at UNE, your success in college, your success in what you're going on to afterwards. Many of you folks are going on to grad school, so the same tactics are going to continue to transfer over. So they're not, these are just the general principles for memory improvement, but as you're reading through these, kind of think of those 5 categories. Remember the attention, now I forgot them. The consolidation, what's my first one? The retrieval, and then the reconsolidation. So determine where they end up going in. So the first one is attention and concentration. So again, making sure that your full attention is given to this subject at this particular time, this assignment at this particular time. You can't sit down and write a paper if you're not, your attention isn't fully on that, right? And then again, your interest. Back to that values times expectation equals motivation. How interested are you in this? And are you willing to kind of force yourself, per se, to get involved with this particular assignment or subject. Intention to remember. So we must give it the necessary attention and interest. So you have to intentionally attend to the information. Then number 4 is confidence, as we said already. You need to believe that you're going to do well. If you already say, oh, I was never good at math, I'm not going to do well in this math class, then what have you just done, right? So remember, our brains are have that neuroplasticity. So even though maybe you didn't like math in high school, and you didn't give it that full attention and force yourself, then it doesn't mean that your brain cannot change and you can be good at math. So making sure you have that confidence. And that's another area where it's important for you to share your information with your classmates, your roommates, even your RAs. They can be very beneficial for you. You know, just going to your RA and saying, I hate this class, I can't go through this class. You know, I have no desire to go to this class. And they'll be there to give you that little, morale boost that you need. So take advantage of them. Starting right, selection, concentrating on the most significant things. Again, I'm not going to read every single one of these, but I want you to take this handout with you.
I have a question on that.
Yes?
How do you know what's the most significant things when everything's just lightly covered?
Oh, right, yes. And a lot of times professors are very good about their learning objectives, and a lot of times the most significant information can be found within the learning objectives for that particular course or that particular chapter. But it is very difficult sometimes. You have an intense amount of information to cover. But some professors are better than others to make sure they tell you during a lecture that you will see this information on a quiz. Make sure that you remember this information. So obviously that's going to stand out for you as significant information. But I would say just continually trying to make those connections with the information that you already know and building upon them, that the significant stuff will come out in the end. But sometimes it is more difficult. I think especially with those science courses, and that's why we had Lena do that presentation first, because those are some of the tough classes where you have so much information. There's no way you have this textbook, with 2,000 pages of information, but your professor doesn't expect you to know all of that information. So it's being able to determine what's that significant information within that. Understanding, again, the difference between just rote going through a concept or truly understanding a concept. So just a little bit more information on that. Building background and making those associations. We already talked about that within the PowerPoint. It's very, very important to relate everything to information that you already know and then new information. Constantly building that, trying to make those healthy brain cells that we saw in the first slide. Organization. A place for everything, and that everything in its place applies to the mind too. A good memory is like a well-organized and well-maintained filing system. If you keep it, then you must decide where to put it. So, and then it goes on to talk about bunching the information together. And that's very, very important, not to have, imagine your file cabinet and everything is scattered. You know, you have, 500 pieces of information or 500 files within your brain. How easy do you think it's going to be to go find it? Just like if I asked you to go get me a file in a file drawer, and there was 500 of them, rather than being organized into the manner that we're talking about. So you're putting all the information, you're categorizing it, and putting it together so that you'll be able to learn it and understand it. And if all this stuff is new to you, and you wasn't taught these strategies within high school, you didn't have an opportunity to practice them, and that's just another reason to come to SASE. Many times our tutors, and our professional tutors and our learning strategy folks will help you with those type of strategies. Help you try to create those Venn diagrams and diagrams to help you bunch that information together. So textbooks present materials in small bunches or bite size. So it's important to chain them all together. Reciting something. Reciting should first take place as you read through each paragraph, and then quiz or test yourself. And recite it in your own words. Auditory learners should spend more time in reciting orally what they are learning than visualizers. So again, I kind of mentioned learning styles, and I just brushed over it, and I didn't hope you didn't think I meant that you could just toss it away, because understanding your learning style is important. But just knowing that you can learn in a different manner. But if that happens to be your particular learning style, then do many of your activities in that particular manner. When I really, really, really have to comprehend a textbook that's a very, very difficult textbook to comprehend, let's say philosophy, that to me is very, very deep and hard to comprehend, then I actually need to read that textbook out loud. So going to the library to read wouldn't be a place for me to go, because nobody would want to hear me mumbling out loud as I'm reading that particular textbook. So, but whatever it happens to be for you. Note taking, again, the Cornell method of taking notes is one that we recommend, because it already gives you an opportunity to and gives you space to add information, to elaborate on your notes, and also to give you that summary at the bottom. But all of you, if you have a particular strategy that's worked for you, then go ahead and use that particular strategy. Some folks like to print out the PowerPoint from the lecture in like 4 slides per page. Have any of you ever tried to do it that way? And then you have the blank lines beside each slide and have the opportunity to write notes. And that's fine if that's a strategy that works for you, but you still have to be able to take those notes and compile them in a different place. Because by doing it that way, you might have, 40 pages of notes just for, one lecture? So it's still, when you get time to study, you don't want to have to go over 40 pages of notes. So it's taking that time to elaborate on that information. Space practice, I already talked about that. I work with many students make an appointment with me to talk about time management. And just managing the huge amount of study time and everything else that's going on within campus. And I usually help students create a color-coded calendar for the week. And it's making sure that you're putting enough study time in for each course. Like for, let's say a course like biology with a lab, then in actuality you should have a 45 to a 1 hour block of time for 6 days out of the week for that particular class. And making sure that you're spending that time spaced. You don't want to just study for 5 hours 1 day a week on your biology. You have to be able to do it in chunks, and for all your courses for that matter. And then there's such a thing as overlearning. Again, if you've learned it already, if you're confident in remembering that information, don't keep going over it. Only continue to recite and go over the information that you're not sure of. Okay, let's see. Did I just have one last slide? Yes. And again, talking about SASE and how to get on TutorTrack. If any of you have not gone to TutorTrack yet, then go ahead and log in and check it out. You can find tutors for every single one of your, almost all of your subjects, your courses that you're taking, and you can see the entire schedule of tutors available. And then when you get into TutorTrack, you log in with your typical ID and password as everything else, UNE, your email. And then you click on the course that you want, and then the reason that you want to come to SASE. And the first one says Learning Specialist, but you have to scroll down if you want tutoring. But if you want to make an appointment with a learning specialist, Mary or myself, we'd gladly meet with you. But I've had students, just because of the way that the TutorTrack is set up, they just automatically pick the first one on the top. So I've had students come to me, made an appointment for a learning specialist appointment when they really wanted tutoring in chemistry or philosophy, something yucky. So, which I couldn't help them with. So check out TutorTrack. Okay? So make sure you signed in so we can get credit for attending. And we send the attendance sheet over to your assessors to make sure that you get the credit for attending the workshop. And don't forget to visit